Hello again, everybody, and welcome to another episode of Fun and Games Podcast. I'm Geoff Moonen.
And I'm Matt, a.k.a. Stormageddon.
And you're listening to episode 138. And this episode, we are joined by Dave Proctor of Mighty Yell Studios and their first big game, The Big Con, which in 2022, because I'm not sure exactly when this episode is airing, had their Grift of the Year release. And we're very excited to talk to him about it and all the work that Mighty Yell does. Mr. Proctor, thank you for being on the show today.
Thanks a lot for having me.
We're so excited to have you. I want to thank you up front for you and the PR team that you work with for providing us with review codes and letting us get our hands on this game. It was sort of on my radar because of the aesthetic alone. And then when y'all reached out, I was like, oh, yes, absolutely. I want to play this game. And I had a blast with it. The first thing I want to talk about is the aesthetic. I'm on the website for The Big Con. And so like the aesthetic goes a long way just in the game, but the website looks like a shitty GeoCities site. Like
it leans hard into the 90s. It's great.
And so clearly this aesthetic is really important, not only to you, but to the game and its identity. Was that the starting point? Like, did you always know you wanted to make this kind of 90s as hell game, or did that come through just from the creation process?
It was a bit of a, once we decided on 90s, then stuff like Rockapella and the Web 1.0 website, those kind of came from that, but it wasn't always a 90s game. So the game's about being a con artist. And, you know, back in 2017, when we were doing early prototyping and concepting on the project, I was knocking around ideas with our then art director, Liz. And we were like, well, usually you see kind of con artist or thief, gentleman bandit stories in the 80s or the 60s. That was that's kind of really obvious. And we couldn't think of ways to make those aesthetically stand out, because in 2017, there was a lot of like very 80s forward visuals and stuff like that.
Definitely, yeah.
You look at stuff like Oxenfree and you know, that made me feel like the Goonies, like old 80s films, right?
Well, and 80s are definitely a big throwback time for video games, because often when people go for like retro aesthetics, no matter where they land is, people think 80s.
Exactly. And there's a sort of convergence there, right? Where you have people that grew up with games in the 80s, and then you either market them something that is pixel art that looks like Mario, or you market them something that reminds them of their youth.
Right.
So those are the two options, right? And I mean, when we thought, you know what, 90s is kind of coming up, there's going to be more focus on 90s, then it let us actually start thinking, okay, well, let's look at it from the other perspective here. Like, does that work mechanically? And mechanically, the game is about being a con artist. And I knew that I wanted like a cross-country story, something kind of like The Wizard, which, I mean, already kind of gave me 90s vibes. And I knew I wanted it to feel good to be a con artist, like to rip people off, to be a thief. The thing about the 90s is that it meant that it was pre-internet. It meant that it was pre-cell phone. And it meant that, like, if I walked up to someone and I said, oh, there's a train station here in Toronto, and every time I walk out of it, I get met with at least one or two people that's like, oh, you know what, I don't have enough cash. I left it in my girlfriend's place, and she's not, you know, home. And they give me the same line every time.
Yep.
And I've seen it enough times, and I've seen it on the internet. Oh, you know, don't have enough cash, girlfriend's not at home. Like, that's the thing. But you can't do that in 1994. You can't look it up. You can't look up if you're being conned or not. So mechanically,
you can't look up if these are real Hare Krishna monks or not.
Yeah, exactly. Mechanically, it worked. Aesthetically, it worked. It gave us a lot of opportunities to like really, really drive home. And then we were sinking into it, and we're like, okay, so let's make a game that looks like the 90s.
Yeah, I mean, you mentioned also, like, it was funny, I was talking to Geoff when we were prepping for the episode. I was like, I have one burning question. It's the paramount burning question, and it's, what was it like to work with Rockapella? Because
you buried the lead there. You mentioned you brought them on. Like, what's up? Come on, please talk about this.
Yeah, because like listening to that final theme, it was that, because I'm a 90s kid, of course, and loved Carmen.
And I'm in an acapella group right now.
Are you? That's amazing.
Yes, I am.
Yes. And so like the minute I heard the ending theme, once you roll credits, I'm like, oh my God, is that That's Rockapella.
Singing
I know
the
that
title song.
Yeah.
It's just, so like, how did that come to be?
So I got to give all credit to our marketing director, Karina. We were knocking around ideas again.
Right.
Sort of like thinking about how to make a game land for people in 2021. There's a lot of questions of like, can we get any sort of notable names or influencers or anything like that? And she was like, well, I don't know, what about Rockapella? And I was like, what? You think? And she was like, oh, who knows? I'll just shoot him an email. And she shot him an email, and they were like, yeah, okay.
Why not?
It was wild, like it's the most boring story in the world. We just asked, and they were like, "This is
Sure.
the fee for that," and we can do it. So I and my buddy Matt wrote the song because getting Rockapella to write an original song would have been really expensive, and they ended up
Sure.
game and all
Of
that
course.
stuff. But we recorded the melody and the lyrics, and then we sent them the lyrics. And I kid you not, it was like sent it to them on a Wednesday, and then on Monday morning, I remember I was waiting in line to get like a COVID vaccine, like my 1st vaccine. And on Monday morning, I get this email, and it's like, "Yeah, here's the demo," and they just had done it all.
Hot new
and it was
exclusive
like,
Rockapella track dropped for you.
yeah, it was like mostly done, and it blew my mind. First of all, I'm blanking on his name. I want to say Scott, the leader of Rockapella, did all the bed tracks himself. And he was like, "This is the song, and now I'm going to bring it to the guys, and they're gonna actually use their voice to dub over." And like they were consummate professionals. It took no time at all. Their manager like had worked with Aerosmith. He's like this old, been around the world music manager, which was like this great little. It was like the fun character moment of the story.
Yeah.
It's like I helped license the what was it? Oh God. Generation X? No, what's the name of the Aerosmith arcade
Revolution
game?
X.
Revolution X. Jeez.
Yeah.
Oh my
He was
God.
like, "Yeah, I helped license that for Aerosmith." It's like, what?
What the hell? That's amazing.
She's like, "So I understand video games and music licensing."
And that's like, I'm sorry, I can't be more 90s than that. I have to leave.
They were like, it took no time, and it was wild. Like I loved working with them. I would do it again. I don't know what situation I'll be in where that's like the right fit, but But I do want to also add the Rockapella song is the one that plays over the credits when you go to the credits in the menu, but the song over the actual end credits is called "Take What's Mine," and it is a song that we wrote at the end of the development of the game, and had a local band, Monstrosa, play. And I'm really proud of that piece of music.
Yeah, both songs are great. I mean, this game has no shortage of incredible music that sets the tone, the vibe.
I've had Rad Ghost's jingle in my head for weeks. Rad Ghost!
When our audio director, Robbie, was like, "Hang on, I have an idea." and he did that with his own voice doing the Rad Ghost bits. And I was like, "Oh God, that's really good." And then when we were recording the audio with Dave Fenoy, we were like, "This is the thing. And we just need Rad Ghost to like say something at the end of every jingle."
Yeah.
He goes, "All right, no break. That's me, baby." And like we were just like, "Damn, man, that's hilarious." Laughing our heads off. Yeah. The music is really great. Dan, our composer, and Robbie are like brilliant. And I got to actually do some songwriting in this one, which was a lot of fun.
That's
Fantastic.
awesome. Rad Ghost is like the characters are, I think, the most standout for me because they pop so well. But like the first time Rad Ghost came in, I was like, no way. And then I was like, well, this is the introduction, right? Like that's not going to happen it literally happens every time.
Shows up outside your building. Okay. No, so it's just while we're home. Then you go on your cross-country trip and, he's just kind of my guy. This is the best.
He's our hit system. He at every like sort of discrete game state, you can walk up to him and he'll be like, "Oh, no, try this." And it was a lot of fun to write him. He was actually, so when we were talking about like 90s design and 90s characters, once we'd settled on the actual art style, we're like, okay, let's look at like cartoons and comics from the 90s. Saffron, our art director, was just like, "I'm just going to draw a bunch of characters." And she drew like a construction worker, and she drew all these other characters, and you can see them. We'll tweet them every now and then, and they're in our art book, which you can get on Steam as well. And then she was like, "And I also drew this ghost, and he's just like, he's got like like a 90s bed sheet on, and he's like a rad ghost." And I was like, "Well, that's going in the game." It was just the whole development of the big con was, if something makes us laugh, it has to go in, which kind of really contributed to the overall like energy of like Mighty L making games in total. Like we have to do it for ourselves too,
Absolutely. Well, and also characters like Rad Ghost and some of the other incidents within the game, and the fact that it's a cross-country trip and you're going to different locations, it feels very... it feels reductive to say this, but it has kind of a sitcom feel to it. Like having Rad Ghost kind of show up in each of the spots. It's the teenager having problems, and, whether it's talking to the neighbor or talking to the weird glowing bull that is the spirit of their alien mother, which was some 80s sitcom, I think.
Yeah, it was. Oh, God. Yeah, I looked it up recently. I don't remember what it's called. I will. It'll come to me. Yeah, sitcom feel is definitely a big part of it, right? Did either of you explore the options menu?
A little bit.
I did. It's been a little bit.
So you can turn on a laugh track in the game.
Oh, I missed that.
So we have a full sitcom laugh track.
Amazing.
Like when you do it, it just says like the big con is recorded in front of a live studio audience at the bottom.
Oh God.
We like wrote the whole game and then we're like, wait, can we do this? Because that's not that hard of a feature to put in. And then we just like ran through the entire dialogue set and we were like, this is a laugh. This is a bigger laugh. This is a boo. So I'm glad that the sitcom writing in general kind of landed.
Yeah, totally.
Now, is any of that writing, because again, you are basically, you're playing a teenage grifter.
Yeah.
And while you're given a noble reason at the beginning of things, is any of that meant to kind of keep the life of crime from being a little too, I don't know, grimy, I guess?
Hit the nail on the head. That is exactly the point. So we kind of knew that there are people that would have a difficult time being criminals.
Yeah. And
we also knew that in general, like we don't want to make violent games. Like that's something that we want to try to stay away from. Not, I love Doom and I just beat Elden Ring. Like give me the blood. It's great, but we want to try to do something different. And so this is a way to be sort of violent in the very philosophical sense.
All choices are violent
actually,
choices.
Exactly. But not actually hurting or maiming anyone to progress through the game, causing physical harm. So while doing that, we're like, well, how do we keep this like feeling like an actual crime, but also light and fun? And a lot of the comedy, the fact that every level sort of has a jerk, it's kind of like the easy mode that you can like feel really good about robbing the jerk. But also as the game progresses, like Allie is kind of getting her footing when you get to the second level. You have to make like a tough choice in the first level, not that tough. You have to get your footing in the second level. And then by the third level, she's really like feeling like I'm amazing at this. And then as you move forward, she starts to get encountered with like actual crimes and things that are a little bit more dark. And it's in those moments when Allie is like progressing that the music actually starts to drop away and like it's becoming a little bit more serious. So we want to kind of like play back and forth with what you're doing, what that means for Allie, but always like keeping you grounded in the fact that it's funny and the fact that it's for a noble reason.
Yeah. This is one of those games that the writing just kind of really propels the story in a brilliant way. And some of my favorite indie games do that. Also, this is the perfect kind of non-voice acting, right? Where the characters have a tone and a tail. It takes me back to, of all games like Banjo-Kazooie, right? Like all those characters have a voice, but they're not saying anything. Or even Undertale, like all those characters, the text tones.
Yeah.
And within the first 30 minutes, you get a sense of who Allie is as a person just by how she reacts and how she interacts with her mom and then friends and all sorts of other stuff. Was it easier or harder to write using that kind of tone setting? Like, because I'm curious because, obviously it's all actual voice acting, but like dialogue reading is probably very different from just having like reactionary noises and words here and there. And I'm curious if one influenced the other when it came to the writing.
Yeah, we added the sort of full dialogue sounds. So, for people listening, it's a series of different emotive barks, things like, huh? What? Oh, that kind of thing. It adds a sort of emotional flavor to the written line. So it's very much like one-on-one conversations in Fire Emblem, which was kind of the big reference point for us. It took us a long time to kind of get to that. And Robbie was advocating for it. I was like hesitant because I hate most dialogue sounds in video games.
Sure.
We tried the thing where like every letter prints a different sort of phoneme. Where people end up sounding like, and I was like, throw my computer in the garbage. I can't.
Worth a try.
I can't handle it. It's worth a shot. We tried just like typewriter sounds. That didn't feel right. So while we were iterating on it and messing around with it, we were continuing to just kind of be like, well, look, we have to write the game. We have to keep going. So we were writing, thinking about what those emotions would be after the fact. And then we went through and added the emotions. So we came up with like a set of about 12 emotions for every voice. And then depending on the importance of the character, they would either have more in that set of 12. So like Eric Ishiu, who was our voice for Allie, has like 5 or 6 different happies. But we have some characters, some voice actors who instead of 12, maybe like repeat sounds. So they maybe only have 5. And then their sad is the same as their confused or whatever. But like we then went through and we said, okay, this is the entire spectrum of human emotion. Which emotion of these 12 things is this line? Like we did it all after the fact, which is maybe not the smartest way to do something, but worked out.
Yeah, totally.
Like that.
I want to talk a little bit about the mechanics. So I played this on the Steam Deck. I'm very lucky to have gotten my hands on one, and it ran beautifully on the Steam Deck. That's OLED screen, the screen size, the controls, all of it. I'm always hesitant with some PC games to play on the Steam Deck just because I'm wondering, will this be better with a keyboard and mouse? You never know. But the controls for a controller in this are so tight. The mechanics are pretty straightforward early on. And then, of course, it's the easy to understand, difficult to master kind of level. Obviously, making a game about stealing, there have been many other classic games about stealing that have all had different mechanics for how you do the stealing, how you pickpocket and all of that. How did you land on these controls? Were they kind of there from the inception, or are you influenced or inspired by other games that, like the whole progress bar shrinking as you try to nail it in the center, is things that have been used in tons of games, but I'm curious what drew you to that mechanic for representing theft.
I love it. You know what? This is great because games have been out for a little over a year, and I haven't really had tons of conversations about like mechanical input decisions.
Yes.
So I'm really happy to do this. Thank you. So like I knew right from the get-go, I was like, it's got to be playable on a controller. That's first and foremost. Like I don't want to make a point and click, and I love point and click adventure games. I have a Monkey Island tattoo.
It's a very 90s genre.
A very 90s genre. Could have done it, right? But I was like, no, like I haven't seen anyone solve that design decision on a controller in a way that I loved until, of course, I played Return of Monkey Island just a month ago. But from there, okay, so we're running around. There was a couple kind of major mechanical decisions that we came up with. One of them was we wanted people, I didn't want you to approach someone to start a conversation. I wanted you to always hop in on their conversation. So when you walk up to someone, a dialogue bubble will pop over their head and they will be saying something to themselves or to somebody else. And then there is a highlight word that you will click onto with like a X or the West button on your button pad. And that was done that way so that we kind of acknowledged Allie's role as sort of being weaving through this world. She's kind of like, what did you mean by that? Like, why'd you say that? Oh, hey, I've got that, you know, as opposed to just like walk up, start a conversation. Hey, how are you? That kind of thing. It's a little more, it's more passive.
A little more awkward teen also to just be like, hey, what's going on?
Yeah, exactly. And mechanically, it makes you feel like Allie is this person, this like real interjecty, opinionated person, which I feel really, really sold in those mechanics. From there, too, I also didn't want a big reliance on branching choices. We have a few, you know, like it's much less frequent where you'll have three options you have to pick from. But for the most part, you will pick one of two words. And something that we noticed early on, people were like, oh, I want to know what the other one is. I was like, you can't. That's it. That's this video game. This video game is you're going to make a choice and that's going to be it. And I'm not going to let you like, oh, what if I hit the X button instead of the Y button? What if I, you know, I'm like, it's fine. You like, trust me. I will give you the game that you want to see. And then finally, to your question about pickpocketing. So the big thing for this game is open-endedness. Like I wanted to drop you in a level and say, okay, it's not a traditional adventure game where you have to get the one key to the one door, then the one key to the one door. It is a open-ended adventure game where you have to get $80 and here's a whole bunch of people and I want you to do whatever you want. Now, like if you're in the mall, you need $78 to get train tickets. You can probably, and we've done this at PAX, get like 500 if you just really take your time on it. And I don't care. I want you to do that. That's fun. It's not like there's no economy to balance or anything like that. You're just like, I'm not worried that you're going to buy the magic beans way too early and max out your plus 5% to grifting stat. You know, it's just like Allie's just getting a lot more money. It's great. So we wanted it to be there to be bigger, sort of adventure gamey, dialogue heavy, you know, quote unquote quests that you can go through, but also a quick, easy way to get money. And that's where pickpocketing comes in. And we tried a couple mechanics, one where it was kind of based in conversation. Like I would have to start one of three different types of conversations with everybody. One was a spy and one was a pickpocket and one was a con. They were all different. They're really in-depth and way too complicated. And that was reliant on like quick time events sort of thing. And it just felt kind of weird. And then we were like, well, what if you just run around and grab stuff, like just get money off of people for nothing? And we wanted to make it just a little bit hard.
Yeah.
And a little bit intentional. And that's where what we call the golf swing came in.
Yeah. Exactly what it is.
And it's exactly that, like get it in the right little power pocket there. It's very subtle, but they do get harder over time. So there are 3 difficulties in every level: easy, medium, and hard. And you can see, like, we teach people that if you see the wallet pop up in the corner, it's got a lot of money, then that person's going to be harder to pickpocket and it's going to move faster. And then by the end, your easy in level 1 is like a medium by level 7 or whatever. So you technically get a little bit better at it, and they're worth more money, et cetera, et cetera. Yeah, I don't know. I'm just like rambling about how this is designed now, but I'm very happy with it. It makes people feel like there's something that they can still mess up, which is great. And it leads to the other weirder mechanical decisions we have of failure. I don't know if either of you failed at any level.
I think I did.
So you get caught, you have to rewind videotapes in increasing levels of absurdity as the game goes on. But if you get caught by someone and you want to reapproach them to pickpocket them again because they're sealed off, you can put on a costume. And Allie's like, that seems ridiculous. Like, they're not going to recognize me if I just put a bag over my head. And Ted's like, don't worry about it. and it just we wanted to have costumes. We didn't know what they were for.
Right.
We had this idea early on. We're like, oh, Allie should be able to put on stupid hats. And we were going to have like whole costume related quests, mechanics, stuff like that. And we're like, what if it was just your failure face? So this is like the depth of our major design discussions over the last few years.
I love all of that. I think that the failure state, it's funny. So I didn't fail for a little while, but the first place I failed was the train. And when it happens, you get kicked off the train. Yeah. And I went, shit, what do I do now? And
now what?
And then of course you talk to your mentor, and he's like, you just got to go over there and provide some videotapes. And I'm like, excuse me, what? And it's just, but like then after a few minutes, it makes sense. Oh, right, I work for a video store. What would make more sense and be more torturous than having to rewind videotapes?
That's established at the beginning of the game.
At a chain video store too, which she specifically hates. Yeah.
And so that was fun. I also like how, like, if you screw up, like you can screw up, I think, what was it, 3 times before they booted you off the train or something like that.
Yeah. Yeah. And 3 times in every level.
Like if you screw up once, like you just can't approach that one person again, but you can purposely screw up, like, unless you put on a costume, but you can also purposely screw up 3 times, get kicked off the train, get back on, and then everyone's reset. Like they've forgotten you exist. And it's like, so I like those little details. I think all the stages have so much life. And also the thing you mentioned about how you could either do these pseudo quests or just pickpocket everyone. In the mall, I think I did a few of the quests and then I moved on. But in the final level, which is gigantic and much harder to pickpocket everyone, eventually I couldn't figure out where the other quests were. So I said, you know what? I only need whatever it was, $1,000 more or whatever it was. And I was like, I'm just going to pickpocket till I get it. And I literally just did laps around the casino till I nailed everybody, to the point where, because you can't pickpocket someone twice, I was like, oh, I need a few. And like it became a similar problem, but it was fun to like hunt down who was left. Like, all right, what sucker didn't I get yet? Which was great.
Yeah. And each of them have their own, like, people ask, like, did you use like a procedural system for like all these characters and dialogue? I was like, nope, I just wrote a bunch of dialogue. So every character, even the ones that you just kind of walk by, have like a little thing that they're saying, a thing that they say when they get caught, a thing that you say after you pickpocket them, etc. And yeah, we just like that. It's a thick game. Not particularly long, but it's got a lot of stuff in it. And I should say, we patched in after launch with the Grift of the Year edition. We patched in on the train the ability to pull the emergency stop and just get kicked off immediately.
Wow. I never thought of that. That's great.
Because we added in a quest in every level that sees you trying to find a burblo. And the burblo is off the train in this.
And so you need to get off.
So we didn't want to like lock people out of it if they played too well.
Yeah. But and I guess also to the writing for a moment, how many 90s artifacts did you want to like file the serial numbers off of and put in? Because look, stealing a burblo, because in the mall it was like, oh, here we go. Yeah, it's the 90s. You got to have Furbies.
Yeah, got to have burblos. Got to have Furbies. There's a lot of stuff. There's like I think there's like a makeshift kind of Tamagotchi. Mm-hmm. We didn't talk about video games as much as I thought we would. There's a lot of references to specific movies that we have kind of renamed for our purposes, like From Husk Till Dawn, the corn-themed vampire film.
Right.
Or Crazed and Bemused, which is the Dazed and Confused knockoff. I think the only one specific real world name mention, I think Allie says Pearl Jam once.
Yes.
They crossed the border.
I think that was the one moment where I was like, it's just got to be Pearl Jam.
I mean, nothing's more 90s than Pearl Jam, right?
Exactly. It really is true.
I mean, we've seen a ton of design influence in this game, just playing it either both from movies, TV, like you mentioned, but I'm curious what your history is with writing and creating games and like with video games in general. Are you someone who's been playing games since you were a kid? What was your trajectory into game design?
God, yeah. I'm definitely someone who's been playing games since he was a kid. I mean, let's do the whole origin story. I was lucky enough that my parents were able to get me a Nintendo Entertainment System. I remember the moment I couldn't jump over a pit in Mario, and my dad was like, "You got to hold this other button, and he moves faster." And I did that, and I was like, "Okay." And that was the last time he was ever better at video games than me. Um, and then I surpassed him forever. And now he's just like, it's not part of my parents' life at all. But I played a lot of console games. I played Monkey Island. It was the first time that a game made me laugh.
Yeah.
And I didn't know games were allowed to do that. And
Mm.
it really kind of stuck with me for a very long time. I've been, again, privileged enough to play just about everything, like every console generation. And, in 2012, I was like watching a lot of extra credits videos and reading a lot of game design stuff. And like, it just kind of came, like, it just started like looking at it a lot. And and then the real cool story is that my Xbox 360 died, as many Xbox 360s did. And I was like, you know what? Maybe I'm done. That's had a good run. Like, maybe this is the end of my video game life. And my partner was like, this is like a thing that you do all the time. This is like a thing that you do when you're happy, and a thing that you do when you're sad. Like, I wouldn't stop it. That seems dumb. And I was like, fine, I'll go buy another Xbox. And I had been like, I'd been in university for like film studies and English literature, and I'd self-published myself. I've been an author, and I've been like trying to make it as a writer for a long time. And I went and I bought this new Xbox, and it came with 5 pack-in digital downloads. And one of them was Alan Wake.
Yeah.
And I started playing Alan Wake. And I started picking up the pages, and like, I've read, some lore books and other things, and they were like, whatever. And I picked up the pages, and I'm like, this is like someone wrote actual fiction for this game. This is like an actual novel. And I thought, it's good. I wonder if someone gets paid to do that. I remember saying that out loud. And then it was like I'd been struck by lightning. I was like, oh no, I should have been doing this the whole time. and that was it. I was just like on warpath. I was like, I need to make video games. Again, my partner, a guy she grew up with, was like a professor of game design at a school. I met with him, and he was like, you should apply to the program. I applied to the program. I got in. I met all my other friends in that year of the program. We founded 13 AM Games out of that program. So we made our first game, Runbow, in like the Global Game Jam in 2014.
Yeah.
So that game is almost 10 years old.
Wow.
Holy cow.
Yeah.
And then Nintendo was like, this has Nintendo DNA. This is a really cool thing,
Definitely.
And we made like the first 9-player game for the Wii U. We launched it out of our college, which was great.
That's amazing.
And like, we're in Ontario and in Canada, and we have like a good benefit of like some major provincial and federal grants for video games, like for actual interactive digital entertainment.
Excellent.
And then I was at 13AM for a while, and then I left in 2017. When I left, I got to like, this is where the writing comes in. I was like a producer and an audio designer on Runbow and on some prototypes. I got to work on like the first prototype of, right before I left, of 13AM's most recent game, which came out this year, Dawn of the Monsters. So like, I was doing all this sound stuff and production work because I was, I'd run businesses before, and I'm good at managing people. And I took myself to be like a freelance producer for everybody. And I got to work with Vertex Pop, where I helped launch, a later SKU of Graceful Explosion Machine, and Super Crush KO. And Super Crush KO, I convinced Mo at Vertex Pop that it needs a story. and we wrote the story, and that was the first game that I wrote all the written words for.
Wow.
And it's good. I played it again recently. I'm really proud of it. I mean, I did the animatic writing in Runbow for the story mode there, but like actual character and dialogue and stuff like that in its entirety on Super Crush. And then, we were starting Big Con.
That's amazing.
And then, I get to do a lot of the writing and story structure for A Night in the Attic, which is our VR title that was going to come out next year. And it's like a very different process, very different procedure for making that, because I'm just the writer. Like, I'm not doing any of the content implementation on that. But yeah, I have taken all these little opportunities to sort of, get my hands into different elements of the games industry. And it has brought me to this point now where I get to kind of pitch, create, and write and design games.
And is that kind of the ideal scope of hats for you? Because I know some people really thrive in that, like, I want to do 8 different parts of this process and be part of these things.
Yeah.
But like kind of handling narrative and writing, that's wheelhouse for you.
I like that hat. I like that hat. I like doing design, like actual game design. Like I'm doing a bit of design work for sort of the next thing. So, we're working on the project after Night in the Attic, and like kind of figuring out how to become a better designer has been really interesting. Cause like on Big Con, it was like, do it this way. And then it would get done that way. And then we'd work for a bit and then we'd like change it. And then now it's much more like, this is the feature. Here is a document. Here is a flowchart. I want to answer all of your questions because I've thought about all of your questions. Now, like that kind of process has been really fun. I'm okay with switching hats and trying to wear less of them simultaneously.
Fair.
Is the big thing for me right now. So, my biz dev hat is always on and the team management hat is always on. So if I can hop in and be like, I'm going to do like this week, I'm going to work on like story finalization for Night in the Attic and just do kind of like a text pass and everything like that. Like that's my big dev task this week. And then I do a lot of, some other management stuff and tinkering on engine stuff.
Of course. That makes a lot of sense. And I find in any creative endeavor and business endeavor that the more cross-pollination, cross-department that anybody is, even if you work exclusively in your corner, you're better able to communicate. So that makes a lot of sense.
Exactly.
Do other members of the Mighty Yell team, do they bring similar breadth to what they do?
This is the other thing is like part of my growth as a human is wearing less hats and letting other people take those hats from me. So trusting people to be a producer. I hired Yash, our producer, during the pandemic. And he's a brilliant writer. He was one of my students when I was teaching storytelling and narrative design at George Brown College in Toronto. And he's starting to do more narrative work. So I'm like, I don't know, let's get you in the engine on the next project. Like you're gonna write this conversation. You're gonna figure that out. He wrote the Burblo quest in the Gift of the Year, nice. And like learning. Like I'm not doing any of the game direction on Night in the Attic, which has been really fun, so that I don't have to think about it. I can do other things, and if I can divest and put trust into other people, the company is going to run kind of a lot smoother, and everyone's going to have a lot more ownership over things, which has been really good. I think from my perspective. And I check in with them often, but the team they feel proud of what they're doing and they feel like they are, they're in charge of a thing, which is nice.
That's excellent. So you mentioned some very key games to, I think, all of our gaming development, especially the Monkey Island games.
Oh, yeah.
What would you say are some of your favorite games over the years? Games that really stand out to you as for example, we barely go an episode without one of us talking about Shovel Knight or Chrono Trigger, as they are very important to both of us.
Yeah.
But I'm curious if they're like standout games either recently or like from your past that you're like, these are pinnacles of why I love playing games.
This is like, you could have a whole separate podcast
sure.
about this.
Always. That's the best part.
Oh my God. Okay.
Kind of do.
Yeah. So the Monkey Island is a big one.
Yeah.
Like that's a huge standout for me. And Alan Wake, again, for the reasons that I mentioned. I love Shovel Knight. Shovel Knight's really, really great. And I was, again, like the Shovel Knight team were some of the first people I met in the industry, which is an amazing feeling because they are
Yacht Club
incredible.
is just delightful.
Yeah. And they've always had time for me when I meet them. And they let us put their character in Runbow, right? Like they were trusting of us, which is really great. I replay Brutal Legend often.
Yes.
I'm a huge fan of that game. I love heavy metal and I love the way that game makes me laugh and just like feels, I don't know, big and silly and interesting and it's mechanically weird,
so weird, but not
it's
bad, just so
not
odd.
Bad, just weird, and like it didn't click for a lot of people, and that's okay, but for me it's like that's the good stuff, man. Games that are important to me. I mean, I should start just keeping a list of stuff like Metal Gear Solid is like really transformative for me. I was like, ooh, not only can games be 100 billion hours long, but they can have a full, intense political intrigue story to them. What was I playing recently? I mean, okay, this whole month is a bit of a write-off because I'm moving and I'm just playing Marvel Snap, and it's been like take my devices away from me.
That game is like, it's funny. So I listened to a bunch of other.
Actually, I gotta go. I got some daily missions popped up. I gotta go do that right now.
Oh, like that hurts.
I try. I don't play a ton of mobile games. I haven't played any card games regularly lately. I've played tons over the years. Magic the Gathering is still one of the few that I stick with. But like, there are a few different podcasts I listen to, including Waypoint and famously, Kato, one of their producers, loves card games. And so like, he talked about it. And then Patrick Klepek, who's like, is hesitant. He's like, well, I'll give it a try. And he's like, after 5 minutes, he's like, oh no. And I got to tell Patrick when he was on my podcast recently, I had the same reaction. I downloaded it because people wouldn't shut up about it for a week. And I was like, fine, I'll play the game. I'll try the thing that everyone's talking about. And then after like 3 matches, I went, oh, this is bad. This is a problem. I found out later that it's some of the core team who used to work on Hearthstone too. And I'm like, oh, well, that makes sense. Now I understand why it's like a drug.
It has all the thought that Hearthstone had in it, and it's just faster, which is amazing. Yeah, we could have a whole third podcast about how much I love Marvel Snap. It's also like it's mechanically interesting, which I think is really cool. Like I gravitate to games for different reasons.
Yeah,
I actually only played Chrono Trigger for the first time during the pandemic. Played on 3DS, loved it.
Best version,
right?
That's the best version.
It stands out. Like I get the appeal. It is a good game. Before that, my all-time with a bullet JRPG was Final Fantasy IX, which is the one that not a lot of people like.
I played it for the first time to completion this year, and I was one of those people who, when I started it on the PlayStation era, I went, that's a stupid fantasy game, I don't care. But like, when I played it this year, I immediately messaged Geoff, and I'm like, the third act, oh my God, why didn't I get to the third act? Like, it's I think I may love it more than the original Final Fantasy VII now. It's just phenomenal.
And you know what? Like 7, I've bounced off of more times than I can count. I just started up. I'm like, I can't. I don't want to do this. Which is like, I don't know. For some people, it's the most important game in the world.
Yeah.
And for me, it's like, it was a Tuesday. Sorry, that's
no. For Bison, absolutely.
Which does also bring me to the very important game, Mortal Kombat 2 and Street Fighter, anything.
Yeah.
I love fighting games. I'm not the best at them, but like I spent a lot of money on Mortal Kombat 11 when it came out. I think I bought it twice.
I buy games twice so often now. Like I own the Mass Effect trilogy on pretty much anywhere you can play it. So
beautiful.
Hazard of the business.
Hazard of the business. And you know what? Even Zeo Drifter, which is a small Metroidvania made by Etoy, is on sale right now. And I'm like, no, I'll buy it again. Yeah. I'll play that game 100 times. It's fantastic. So this is like my whole brain. There's more games. We could just talk about anything you want.
I mean, well,
absolutely.
That's our brain too. I mean, Geoff and I have done that on several occasions. It gets harder and better, of course, as now that we work with and around the games industry, interviewing developers. Like we had the benefit of interviewing the folks from Tribute and talking about Shredder's Revenge before it came out. And then when it was coming out, they sent us review codes for the PlayStation. I was like, this is great. Awesome. And then it was on Game Pass. So I downloaded it on my computer. I was like, great, I have it here. And then I booted up my Switch. And I'm like, well, they gave us a code and we interviewed them, but I want to support them, right? I love this studio. And so then I bought it on the Switch. And so now I have it on every platform.
It bangs. What a good game that is. Holy cow.
Good.
It's
Geoff often says it plays like we remember the old games playing.
Nice.
The old games aren't as tight as we remember, but this one plays into that.
That's neo-nostalgia is kind of, if I wanted to give it a cute name, it's that.
It's a great way to put it. You know what? And I realize I need to also mention my standout game of the last decade of something that will just like, I will never stop thinking about is Outer Wilds.
Oh, sure.
That is my last like, like if everything I've mentioned are games that got me into video games, this one got me into video games again when it came out a couple of years ago.
We all have games like that. That was me with Control because I had actually never played Alan Wake, and then I played. So we have a side series in the feed called Side Quests, where a different host of every episode talks for 5 to 15 minutes about a game they love and why they love it. I'd love for you to do one at some point.
I would love to.
I don't think we've done Outer Wilds yet.
We haven't done. Yeah, no one's done Outer Wilds yet. But that series launched because I finished the Ashtray Maze, which I will say still nothing about.
Sure.
And in that episode, I call it out and do the same thing. I said, here's this thing. I will not tell you what it is, but you will love it when you get to it. And like that moment specifically in that game was like, made me re-fall in love with games. And then made me go back and stream all of Alan Wake. Because I was like, well, I have to see where this came from. I had played the Max Payne stuff and liked it, but didn't love it. And I was like, but I've heard good things about Alan Wake. And then fell in love, of course, with Alan Wake. And then they released the Alan Wake DLC for Control. So like, I get that. I think we're in such a renaissance of game design, both indie and AAA, that I think everyone has that game that they're like, oh, this is why I still love playing video games, right? This thing. And I've yet to play Outer Wilds, though I have heard nothing but great things about it. And like, I just have this running list of everyone's favorite game, and several people I know is that game.
Yeah. Yeah, it is. I mean, after we're done this, I'll happily do that side quest for you right now.
There we go. All right, efficiency.
Yeah. Oh yeah, I got to go back and finish Control. I was like not in the mood for the combat when I played it.
It has accessibility options.
I have it on.
You can make yourself invincible.
I know. I'm just gonna go
it.
wreck shop, and I got it. I have it on Epic, and I got Epic on the Steam Deck. So I'm gonna just like
do it. It's worth it.
Sit on my couch and play Control.
Talking about writing, like the facial technology, capture technology in that game and the writing in that game is unlike, I think, anything I've ever seen, right? And it makes me even more excited for Alan Wake 2 because obviously they are going to use a lot of that technology in this brand new, scarier Alan Wake game, which I still stand that Alan Wake was scary enough. It didn't need to be scarier.
Oh, yeah. The lumber mill? Oh, come on. Get out of here with that.
We provided at no cost to you a more terrifying experience. Alan Wake 2.
I love seeing all that facial tech and like love seeing where things go because it's not something in the near future that I see us using.
Right.
Like that kind of thing, like for the size of our team and stuff like that, for the size and scope of the games that we want to make, like I'd rather release a game a year than work on a $5 million game. Although now that I said it out loud, I'll happily work on a $5 million game. What a stupid thing to say. If anybody has $5 million, please. But like, I would like, I want to kind of leverage the skills we have and grow slowly, to see what our team can do. But the more that tech, gets ironed out and becomes accessible and stuff, like I wouldn't have pitched that we could make a VR game 4 years ago.
Right.
No way. Absolutely not. And I would have thought it was a dumb idea. But everything kind of just like when I tried a quest for the first time, everything kind of just clicked in a different way. I was like, oh, okay, cool. I am like zero shame in it. I am a late adopter and it's great. It's the best. I love it. I don't think I had my Switch for like 10 months. Really waited to see how everyone was liking it. Bought a play date 8 months after it came out. Like, great. The Steam Deck was the only thing where I was like, sure, that seems like a good idea.
Yeah, I was the same way.
I'm right there with you.
Yeah. I take the time and also like I don't want to chase trends, like for my team. Like as it's nice to get them paid and that's like my main goal, but I know people that have done like NFT enabled games and stuff like that, and I'm sure it was exciting at the time, but that's dead now. And that was over the span of one calendar year. So like
and good riddance, I say.
I agree. Although I've had people trying to educate me more about the ecological side of those things that is less harmful than I initially thought, which is nice. The psychological side of those things is still a big mess.
Yeah, no less damaging.
Yeah, no less damaging. Not healthy.
Yeah.
But yeah, I love watching what people like Remedy can do. And I heard that the Control budget is like 8 times the first game, right?
Yeah, Control 2 is going to be wild, and 505 is helping them with it, and like it's going to be, I can't even imagine what they're going to do or where they're going to go. Like there's a whole section of Control that I want to talk to you about that you have not played yet that like blew my mind the first time I played it.
Yeah, I'm excited. I'm gonna boot it back up.
Fantastic. Well, and I think also with just design and the relationship between smaller studios and larger studios, I think something that Matt, you and I have talked about in previous episodes is it really is kind of ideas trickle up and technology trickles down. So yeah, you're going to get VR, you're going to get the facial recognition, give it 5 years and like it's just going to be something that you can import into Unity or whatever pretty soon. And I think with this also comes the fact that a lot of design ideas now or a lot of games are not unafraid, but are more open about wearing their influences, where some aping of other games in the 80s and early 90s felt like cash grabs and pale imitators. I don't know whether it's the history of gaming has gone on long enough, or as we're talking about the games that we love and the things that come to us, it's easier to be like, yeah, I just wanted to make a game that felt like this. Like playing the big con as far as like LucasArts point and click games, I grew up with a Mac and like one of those variety packs. So I played so much Sam and Max Hit the Road.
Yeah.
Gave me a little bit of that kind of a thing. And are there any sort of those games or like games from your past or games that have come out that you're like, man, I want to take a stab at something like that and put that out there?
Yeah, yeah, there are.
Always are.
There's oh god, I was talking to somebody about this. There's a an eternal sadness of making video games because it takes a year, 2 years to make a game,
Right.
a small game. And while that happens, let's say once a month, something will come out where you're like, that's a good idea.
Yeah.
So by the time you're done a game, you've seen 24 games come through. Each game gives you like 3 ideas. So by the time you finished your game, you have 72 new game ideas. And then you have to pick one. And then you do it again, and then you've got 145 new game ideas. Like it's brutal, and
Yeah.
you never get to make everything. So like, there's a million things that I would like to do. I'd love to make like a really atmospheric first person sort of like mystery thing,
Mhm.
like a Myst, or actually not from my childhood, but a game like Kona. I don't know if you
yeah.
played Kona. Kona's really interesting.
I know.
I want to capture the feeling of the final level in Elite Beat Agents.
Ooh.
Yeah.
I want to capture it, and I want to turn it into a cream that I can sell. Because
Jumpin' Jack Flash, give me that.
It is the best. It is one of the greatest moments in all of video games. It is the most, like, I cry when I play it. I just like, it kills me. I love it so much. So that's a big one for me, is like that emotional moment, and the gameplay of that game is really special.
Yeah.
And like, I don't know. I don't want to necessarily make a platformer, but I'm curious to know, because I've worked on like several.
Right.
Yeah.
I'm curious to know what that genre can. I'm curious to, like, I'm always keeping my eyes open for a way that it can surprise me.
Yeah.
Or like an idea can come into my mind where I'll be like, ooh, that'd be neat. Like, I don't know.
Something that makes you fall in love with games from the other side.
Exactly.
Yeah. I mean, that's
the goal.
It's one of those things that, like, I love a good story, and a good story will take me far, but I sometimes feel like good mechanics, tight mechanics that are fun to do, sometimes will get me further. Like, I've already famously said in multiple places that I've loved Sonic Frontiers. I'm a big Sonic fan, and so I'm a mark.
I gotta play that.
I'm a mark for it. But just running around a large world, they're segmented, but large world as Sonic, super fast, and just grinding on rails that hang in the air. Like, logically, the layouts don't make sense, but I don't care because it's fun to do the tricks and collect the things. Took me back to the early days of the collectathons, like Conker's Bad Fur Day and Banjo-Kazooie. Like, there's just stuff everywhere, and there's so much of it, but it doesn't matter. And like, I think what ultimately, to bring it back to the big con, the thing that I love most about this game is it feels like a perfect marriage of narrative storytelling and mechanics. Like, you could argue that the stealing mechanic, once you get it, is simple enough, right? Like, you know how it works. But the simplicity doesn't make it boring. The simplicity makes it more exciting because I can start planning. And like, when they get harder or smaller, like, I loved stealing from people, which is such a weird thing to say out loud.
It doesn't take a lot to start it up, and it doesn't take a lot if you fail
Yeah.
it. Like, it's quick and easy, so you can do it as much or as little as you want, and that makes it easier to fall in love with the idea and the mechanics of it.
Yeah.
That's very, I appreciate you both saying that. Thank you very much.
I am curious, 2 things. Obviously, you have mentioned very casually that you are working on the next thing, whatever that is, which obviously you can't talk about quite yet. But I am curious, in the pantheon of the big con and the style that it is aping, it would be very 90s to have a cheesy sequel to the big con, like the Big Con 2. Is that something that you would even consider, or do you feel like the story's done? Do you feel like you have no reason to go back to this narrative?
Or even to go back to your time with Wooden Rocket Press and like more writing and publishing sorts of things, is that something where it just needs a cheesy comic tie-in?
Like, there's ways that we can tell parts of that story in other mediums. I don't know what the sequel to the Big Con is.
Yeah.
I've talked to the bigger con. Like, is it a continuation of Allie's story? I've talked to Jill Murray, who is an amazing narrative designer and design director, and came up with our whole story. And like, we've talked a little bit about what that could look like. And I don't know if we did a video game, if it would be the same, if it'd be a continuation of our story, would it be a spiritual successor where it's a different sort of thing happening?
But Rad Ghost is still there.
But Rad Ghost is still there because we need the through line. Or Rad Ghost is teaching a new I don't know.
Whatever it is.
What I'd love to do is I'd love to explore it in more mediums, obviously.
Yeah, sure.
If I did do a Big Con 2, I'll give you, every now and then when like you see those posts with like, so-and-so says what it would look like if you made a sequel to this. I'll give you that. Right. So if I did do a Big Con 2, I would want to work on the systemic side of it. I'd want to work on those more procedural systems and the way that like you're looking at the entire game as like a board of things that you can play with and bend. Like moving more into the Hitman territory, which was one of our inspirations for the openness of Big Con.
Sure.
Like it was like
Love
Hitman, meets Night in the Woods or whatever. But moving more towards the other side of it. The other thing that I would want to do with the Big Con is make a card game or like a tabletop game.
That would be cool.
So that's the thing that I think there's ways to kind of explore this concept in sort of more ways to play it. I think the same story can be brought out, and it's great if people that like your game then go buy your card game. But I think like the idea of conning, the idea of sort of playing those mind games with people, I think there's a lot of room there, and I think tabletop is a fun way to do it.
I love that. What a great answer.
I agree.
Yeah, I mean, we're
already thinking of really ridiculous things I would want to see in like a drifting card game. Yeah.
Like
I love card games so very much. I was silent during Marvel Snap because I am pointedly not downloading that game. I've got shit to do, and I do a bad job of doing it already.
It'll mess you up. I made it took me 4 minutes the other day to just make a new deck, and I was like, oh, that might be fun.
I play Magic the Gathering Arena as casually as I can.
Yeah, I was doing my dailies on Magic for a bit, and I love Magic. I will treat Magic the Gathering the way that like some people treat hard drugs. Like I will get together with friends that I haven't seen in a while. We will buy a couple fat boxes or fat packs, and we will like spend a weekend playing Magic, and then no one will talk about it for years.
What's the difference between an 8-ball and a booster box? I don't know.
I think they're the same price.
Yes.
Yeah, totally. I mean, I made what I called a weenie deck in Marvel Snap, and that's just all one power characters that can play off each other. And I don't even know if it works, but I can get 5 cards out in round 2. It's like around 3. It's like
I love trying to make stupid concepts work in games.
It's great. That's exactly. I'm like, what if these go together? I also have a deck with all the cards that I haven't upgraded, and sometimes it's really good, and sometimes it's just trash.
Love that.
Yep. Yeah. I love that in Magic Arena. You can name your decks, but no one sees them. My personal favorite deck that I love is my blue-white flyer deck that I just called Nice Bird Asshole.
Amazing. What a great name. Well, Dave, this was wonderful. Thank you for taking the time to chat with us. We really appreciate it.
Thank you guys very much. I really appreciate the time. This is a blast.
Before we wrap up, can you tell folks where they can find you online if you wish to be found? Twitter, if that still exists in a week, things like that. And of course, more importantly, where they can find Mighty Yell and the Big Con.
You can find me on Twitter at blank Dave, but I've actually deleted it from my phone, and I've been feeling really good about it. I was looking at it way too much, and I've done like a little bit of social media detox.
Yeah.
I still pop on. Using Twitter on a browser, way easier. I can go on and watch. It looks like it's this combination of like people trying to escape a burning building, and also like at the same time, the burning building is a summer camp, and a bunch of people are worried that they'll never see each other again, so they're exchanging phone numbers. That's how it feels. It feels like a bunch of kids exchanging phone numbers from a burning summer camp. That's what Twitter is.
Printed.
You can find me at blank Dave. You can find all of the Mighty Yell social media accounts, which are remaining active through the fracture, which is just Mighty Yell everywhere. And I signed up for co-host, but they haven't approved me yet. So I'll let you know how that goes. But yeah, for the most part, if you are a game developer, I like to be present at game events. And usually if we're doing a PAX or something, I'm on the show floor, if not at our booth, walking around. So if you ever see me, just say hi. And just be like, hey, you're Dave. And I'll be like, yes, I am. And that's the whole conversation. Wow.
That's amazing. Perfect.
I like that.
Of course, the Big Con is available on Xbox, on PC, and Nintendo Switch. Oh, I didn't realize it was on Nintendo Switch. It'd probably be really fun to play on Nintendo Switch.
I think so.
It is on Nintendo Switch, and since this is coming out in early 2023, I will also say that very soon, if you follow Limited Run Games, our pre-orders for Nintendo Switch physical edition are going to go live, which is very cool. Also, by this time, you should also be able to play it on Game Pass. So, get in there. No reason not to.
Yeah,
Limited Run is my greatest source for buying games multiple times.
Same.
Yep.
Yeah.
That's what we're hoping for.
Yes. There you go. Well, you got me.
Thank you again, Dave, for joining us. Thank you, everybody, for listening. Tell us what your big con is. Do you have like this idea, the scam you want to run? You go on an adventure with your friends, get into Ocean's 11 style trouble, or just tell us what indie games you're playing these days. Have you played the big con? What did you think of it? Why did you love it? How cool is that Rockapella song? We need answers to all these questions, of course.
What other games need Rockapella themes?
That's what I want to know.
And I really enjoy, Matt, how you started off with confess your crimes to us, everybody. But it's okay. You can tell me. I'm not a cop. Nor am I your dad, so just tell me whatever. But also we want to know what other cool 90s throwback games that you like, what other sort of genres you want to see that time period explore, where you want to see the big and small heists of things, what great ideas and games do you want to see Mighty Yell do? Let us know, and there's so many different ways that you can get in touch with us. You can find us on Twitter and Instagram at funandgamespod. You can email us at funandgamespod@gmail.com. Let us know what you think of this episode, previous episodes, who you'd like to see, and what you'd like us to talk about in future episodes. You can also go to certainpov.com, where you'll find not only a permanent invite link to our Discord server, but links to other fantastic, nerdy Certain POV podcasts.
Also, when you have a moment, if you could rate and review us on your podcast platform of choice, especially Apple Pods, it really helps us to get featured. It really helps us to grow the audience. We love having these incredible video game conversations with y'all, and writing and rating us in all those places really helps facilitate that. We are excited to continue to work on expanding this podcast, this audience, this community. We love being a part of all of these conversations. As of when we're recording this, which is probably a while before it airs, we're all playing the new Pokemon and losing our minds off over the graphical glitches while still enjoying catching little monsters. So, we love to have these conversations and continue to facilitate them both online, or if Twitter burns in hell, on Discord.
And the ratings and reviews that you put out and the questions you ask and everything that goes on here brings in more people and more ideas into the conversation. And this is a conversation. Thank you for being a part of it. I'm Geoff Moonen.
And I'm Matt, a.k.a. Stormageddon.
And happy gaming.
Hi, I'm Matt, a.k.a. Stormageddon, and I'm the host of CPOV Autographs at certainpov.com. It is a bi-weekly interview series where I interview folks from all over the arts, from writers to comedians to magicians to musicians, even actors, historians, podcasters, pretty much anyone who's willing to chat with me for a little bit. If you like interesting conversations with even more interesting people, go to certainpov.com or wherever you get your podcasts. And remember, music is life, and life is good.
CPOV. CertainPOV.com.